So far, Democrats seem to have learned nothing from their futile battle against Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation. They put the country through 3 weeks of what basically amounted to a he said, she said.
I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me.
I have never done this to her or to anyone.
They used paid activists to corner senators.
You are allowing someone who is unwilling to take responsibility for his own actions to sit in the higher court of the country. Shame!
But based on what you've seen, was that an assault?
They helped stoke protests that ranged from unhinged to downright pathetic.
We are about to march. We need everyone to pay attention.
I'm not paying attention. Can Linda Sarsour learn some rhymes every now and then? All right, well, they use their pals in the press to run with the most outlandish, unsubstantiated claims possible.
The nomination of Judge Brett Kavanaugh plunges deeper into danger tonight over an allegation of sexual assault that leaves his confirmation in mortal jeopardy.
A third allegation of sexual misconduct against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh surfaced today.
What we know about the allegations from the third accuser and the late-breaking news of a fourth accuser.
She considers her own memories credible, and she felt it was important that she tell her story before others did without her consent.
But despite all their efforts, the emotional pleas, and all the big money behind their smears, on Saturday afternoon, Kavanaugh was confirmed by the U.S. Senate. So after their spectacular flameout, what do the Democrats do in response? They double down on failure.
If he is on the Supreme Court and the Senate hasn't investigated, then the House will have to.
You'll investigate.
We would have to investigate any credible allegations.
I'm totally focused with all the angry women and the men who listen to women and support the credible accounts of sexual harassment and sexual assault, which is very underreported, that I'm focused like a laser beam on the elections.
But there are signs that this angry gender politics game is just not working. A Marist poll last week found that there's virtually no gender gap when it comes to Justice Brett Kavanaugh among either Republicans or Democrats. 80% of Republican women have a favorable view of Kavanaugh, with 81% of Republican men agreeing. And on the Democratic side, men have a greater unfavorable view of Kavanaugh, 85% to 75% of women. Well, the struggle over Kavanaugh, as we noted in the angle shortly after he was nominated, was always going to be political. The Democrats were going to savage anyone Donald Trump nominated, except maybe if he renominated someone like a Merrick Garland or something completely cuckoo like that. The perpetual rage against all things Trump also seems to intensify the more Trump accomplishes. And it's unrelated, by the way, to how optimistic and how confident American workers and consumers are about the economy. None of that even matters to the crazies on the left. Consider what the president, with the help of Mitch McConnell, has accomplished just on this very important issue of judicial nominations. Of course, 2 Supreme Court justices, 26 federal appellate court judges, and 41 federal district court judges. And by the way, they're just getting started. And of course, President Trump has chalked up so many other impressive wins, gets very little credit in the mainstream media for it. He successfully renegotiated NAFTA, forcing both Mexico and Canada to accept a deal that finally begins to treat American manufacturers and American workers fairly. He's rolled back needless government regulations. By the way, for every new regulation the Trump federal agencies have issued, they've basically rescinded 22. The government estimates that the lifetime net cost savings of his deregulatory efforts is about $8.1 billion. And Trump passed the largest tax cut in a generation. Manufacturing jobs are back, the GDP is above 4%, and we have the lowest unemployment in nearly 50 years. Trump is taking on China for their years of cheating and stealing from the American workers and American businesses. And finally, we have an administration that recognizes the threat that this expansive communist regime poses to our own national and economic security. Trump is transforming both the country and the Republican Party, and not a moment too soon. Even the ranks of some of the never-Trumpers have dwindled, and they grudgingly admit the genius and success of Donald Trump. The Kavanaugh struggle was a clarifying moment for the never-Trump crowd, like a political astringent. Bret Stephens, Hugh Hewitt, and Eric Erickson all lined up behind the president in the midst of the Kavanaugh fight, some more than others, but nevertheless, it's a big change. By the way, remember, this was Eric Erickson, who was head of that Red State website back in August of 2015.
I wanted to give the man a lot of latitude because I know he taps into some anger that even I share with the Republican Party, and a lot of us here do. But if our standard bearer has to resort to that, we need a new standard bearer.
And this is Eric Erickson to the Washington Examiner last week. Quote, "For the first time, I see myself voting for Trump in 2020. It has a lot to do with Kavanaugh. He's not the only reason, but he's definitely the straw that broke the camel's back." Is Eric calling himself a camel? Or is that the left? Anyway, I'm happy and I'm glad. Eric's a good guy. Of course, establishment figures such as Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, John Cornyn, none of those guys wanted Trump to be the nominee. They have all really stepped up to help push Kavanaugh over the confirmation finish line. Maybe they're closer, all of them, to recognizing that time's up on the old GOP, and Trump's policies are actually bearing fruit. All the excitement is with Trump. Let's face it, all the momentum is with his ideas. There's too much on the line for intra-party squabbles any longer. And the choice for voters is now really simple. Mob rule or the rule of law? Perpetual rage or real results? Demonization or due process? As an example, this is what the anti-Trump rage machine was up to over the weekend. Protesters in Portland blocked a major thoroughfare, causing needless disruption. When a driver dared to push through the blockade, this was the reaction of these open-minded and tolerant leftists. It's like a scene from Homeland or something from Benghazi. The far left, let's face it, is now running the Democratic asylum.
The main base of the Democrats have shifted so far left that we'll end up being Venezuela. This country would end up being Venezuela. I think a lot of Democrats are going to be voting Republican on November 6th.
Tonight, I felt very privileged to be in attendance as former Justice Anthony Kennedy swore in our new justice on the Supreme Court, my friend of many, many years, and one of America's finest legal minds, Brett Kavanaugh.
As Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States.
As Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States.
Under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
Under the Constitution and laws of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I mean, you could feel the excitement in that room, and it was one of the most amazing political moments I've been privileged to observe. And meanwhile, the haters on the left are swearing retribution and promising more mayhem.
So I say, when they go low, we hit harder.
Did he perjure himself? Is your mind made up?
Don't put a liar on the court. 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 Don't put a liar on the court.
They're for women, right? Women can be anything they want to be or think whatever they want to think. Don't believe that for a second. My friends, the choice is yours. It's coming up really soon. It's Election Day. And that's the angle.